It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and unfortunately, my regular co-host, Phil Emery, is off dancing with narwhals today. So, I'm flying solo with our guest, Toronto-based singer-songwriter, Mimika. How are you, Mimika?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the show. We're really happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we met a few weeks ago at, where was it you were performing with Carmen Toth?
Cameron House.
Cameron House, yes, of course. One of my favorite venues. Surprised I didn't remember the name.
That was my first time I'd ever even been in that venue. Which
is seriously?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I feel very late to the party. It was sick.
Yeah. It's a great place. We got that front room and the back room and everything. It's really quite cool. But yeah, awesome stuff. Okay, and for everyone else, please send your comments and questions to at Song Talk Radio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. So, fresh off the heels of her new release, Love and What I Thought It Was, Mimika is making the transition from songwriter to soul-bearing artist. With over 2 million streams as a writer and a degree from Berklee College of Music, Mimika's story-first approach to songwriting has earned her the kind of balance that allows her to captivate audiences around the world. Welcome to Song Talk Radio, Mimika.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Sitting for the intros is always so hard. I'm like,
it's a great little intro. It's nice and short. I do like that.
Sweet and to the point, right?
Yeah, sweet and to the point. That gets in. We're going to get into your Berklee education and everything. But first things first, just to get our listeners up to speed, we're going to take a listen to your song. I Can See the End. So here we go.
I can see the end. But this time it feels a little different. Threadbare chairs, light glinting off the silverware. Friends have all gone home, I'm unaware. Wrong side of midnight, but who cares? So we pick up the trash, blow out the candles, watch it turn back, clear off the mantle, table for two, just how we meant it. Nights spent like this, I've grown to expect it. And how am I to say confidently, babe, seeds grow where they're planted? Who am I to say things will stay the same? Gotta hope it happens. Can't explain why at the strangest of moments clarity comes soft as a bullet. And how am I to say confidently, babe, seeds grow where they're planted? Who am I to say things will stay the same? Gotta hope it happens.
Awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Really, really cool, captivating song. Boy, there's so much to unpack in this. There's so many questions I want to ask you about your processes. This is really neat. I mean, in your intro, you say, story based, and this, I think, from an entire songwriting perspective, this has got, to me, a bit of a musical theater approach to it. There's a story. There's structurally, there's interesting things going on, a pre-verse, and then you get into more structured things. It builds, it grows. Even in some of your melodic choices, it seems kind of musical theater based, and there's just a unity to the whole thing that feels like it belongs in a musical to me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how did this song start for you? Like, what was the initial impetus?
So this song was the last song that I wrote for the project Love and What I Thought It Was. And speaking of like musical theater, and like, I'm very narrative driven. I started as like a writer who loved music and then like merged everything together. And I was missing like a piece of the story because the whole project altogether is one big connected story if you listen to it from front to back. And I needed this like this denouement kind of song where things are resolved, the characters getting what they want, what they've gone after and done this whole journey for. And I really I had the line, "I can see the end," for so long. And I finally was like, okay, but what if I switch it up? Because I feel like typically you hear "I can see the end" and it's like, it's bad, or it's like talking about a breakup or the end of a relationship or something. And I was like, what if this is "I can see the end," but it's like the real ending, like the big one where like things work and you can see the forever kind of ending. So that's kind of where the like seed of this song began. And then knowing that I was going for such a big picture kind of theme, to start the song, I was like, okay, I need to dial it in and let's get super specific and grounded. So that's where the imagery kind of comes from in that first verse. And then it sets you up to not just feel like you're kind of floating around listening to this giant concept kind of song.
Okay. So it was part of a larger narrative. How many songs was the entire narrative?
6.
6 songs. And that you released as sort of an EP. That was meant to be listened to in order, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, people can do what they want, but there's a lot of intention behind, the track list order and sonically how the whole project evolves from front to back. And I put a lot of effort into it.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate that. That seems to be a bit of a lost art. I mean, everyone's interested in just doing the single these days, and it's kind of a thing. I did it myself. I did an EP a few years ago of electropop music where it was 7 songs all tied together. It wasn't a narrative as such because of other factors, but it was very much meant to be listened to from beginning to end. And there's a few artists I listen to. Sloan particularly comes to mind, of where their albums a lot of the time are very much structured that you really should listen to them from beginning to end. Which is a bit of a lost art. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of got that. I mean, the title is great because you start off with "I can see the end." It does come back, sort of as the climax of the song. "I can see the end" when you belt it out at the end, and that really does suggest, okay, this is the end of the story. Whether it's a good ending or a bad ending, I think, is a little bit up for interpretation. I did get some senses that it was a final place at least, but it also from some of the lyrics and stuff, it did feel like it might have been something of a sigh. It's like, oh, we've reached the end. Oh well, kind of thing. Like a little bit negative, a little bit been here before kind of feeling. I'm really interested in this pre-verse because there's no tempo to it. It's kind of tempo free. The 6/8 time doesn't come in until "So We Pick Up the Trash, Blow Out the Candles," and you sort of get the structure of it. But that first mean, that's a very kind of old-fashioned thing to do, is to put in.
I love it so
They did that in the
much.
50s all the time, right?
So this is literally inspired. This whole project is inspired by 1950s orchestral and 1950s musicals. So you like got it right on the money. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Because it really, like the end of it in particular, like you're very deliberate about your melodies. This time it feels a little different, and the wrong side of midnight, but who cares? You took the melody up. You're like, but who cares? Instead of who cares, and sort of resolve it. But you left us hanging. And it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? And then drop us into the more structured stuff. So I really appreciate the amount of tension that imparts, and again, just a sense of unity. Wrong side of midnight, but who cares? Is kind of a question, right? And then we want to look forward to the answer. Yeah, which is a great thing. I watched a YouTube video with a producer a little while ago who was doing a Q&A thing with his YouTubers, and people were debating whether or not to record to a metronome or not. And clearly for this song, you're not going to do that. The tempo is all over the place. You know, it builds, it grows. The first verse completely tempo free.
And we were very intentional about that as well. Like I went in and I was like, hey, obviously this is in 4/4. I'm switching it to like 6/8. Do I want this to be incredibly structured? Is that going to, and I tried it both ways. I was like, does it serve the song? You know, everything that I do, and that's something that like one of my favorite professors at Berklee and I talked about it like at length for hours and hours, is intention behind everything that you do in writing. And when we went back and forth between like, hey, we'll do it to click and we'll do it super structured versus just letting it kind of flow. And I was like, this serves the song better, because then when you get into that, if it was like super rigid and everything, it loses that feeling and that emotion that like you're kind of swelling with it and growing with it. And then you get into that 6/8, it doesn't have as big of a payoff if it's already coming from a really structured place.
Yeah.
So,
and the 6/8 is an interesting choice, because 6/8, even though it's structured, it is kind of a swaying, ebbing feel to it. It's not as rigid as 4/4 even. So that was an interesting choice as well, because it really works with that intro verse and with the whole vibe of the song. I think it's really cool. What about, I mean, the lyrics are pretty interesting. Like, how come, like, this is something admittedly I struggle with a lot sometimes, is getting interesting imagery in my own songs, right? And then like threadbare chairs, light glinting off the song. I really love the image of where was it? Soft as a bullet. Clarity comes soft as a bullet.
Oh, thank you. I'm really proud of that line. I love that line. It basically, the whole song is meant to be, it's the aftermath of a dinner party at like a tiny little apartment with a couple who just had all the people they love in the world over. And my character is like, you know, they're cleaning up after this lovely night, and she just kind of has this moment of realization of like, oh my God, like, this is my person. Like, this is my forever. Like, what I'm doing right now this is the end. This is it for me. And I love it so much. And it's like, it doesn't have to be this giant declaration or these huge moments and things. So the clarity comes soft as a bullet line was like, these huge realizations can happen for you and click into place when you're doing something as simple as like cleaning up after a party, or, you know, the quiet moments.
Right. Yeah. Which is a great little insight, and a sort of, you know, and that's supported by other lines. The seeds grow where they're planted, sort of thing. It's that whole idea of the smallness, and it is a very intimate song in that sense, right? And even though it's an I, there's no you in this song, is there?
No.
There's only an I. Confidently Babe is the only place where you suggest that there's a partner, a romantic partner in this context, you know?
Because it's supposed to be about like you and your really, it's like her moment of coming to this realization. And it doesn't like necessarily have anything to do with the other person's actions at that point. It's just her realizing for herself, like, oh, and that's what the whole project is about. Like, again, with the through lines, it's like, it's love and what I thought it was. It's going on this journey from initial thoughts of love and experiences to like, oh my God, this is what it actually is. And it's so different and juxtaposed to what I experienced in the beginning. It is, as much as it involves other people and it's talking about relationships, it's very much the main character's journey.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And it's very different than what's presented in like rom-coms and popular culture and that's
it's a little more zoomed in. I love coloring things differently and like changing up the perspective of stories and stuff, and even doing it within the song, like you were talking about before, just the line itself, I can see the end. Every time you hear it in the song, it almost takes on a little bit of a different meaning, which I think keeps it exciting and interesting for the listener and also for me to sing and for me to write. You know? Right.
Yeah, I heard about this actually from a Berklee professor who did a Susan Catania. We've had her on the show many times. She taught at Berklee for like 20 plus years. But she did this whole YouTube webinar kind of thing about recoloring your chorus and saying
it's a Berklee thing,
right? Very much a Berklee thing, I guess. And the 3 times you repeat your chorus, you know, lyrically, musically, whatever. Especially she talked about lyrically and how depending on the context of the verses, pre-choruses, whatever, it could change the meaning of those literally the same words, but now the meaning of it has changed. Right.
It's one of my favorite tools in writing.
Yeah.
It's such a nice challenge because it's easy to kind of have your idea and stick with it and drive it home. Well, it's not always easy. I won't use the word easy, but I think it's more common to have your core idea and be building on that core idea throughout the song. I really like to challenge myself in, okay, this is my core idea. What's another way to look at it? What's another way to approach this? And how does that change the storyline of the song? And how does it change my chord choices and my melodic choices? You know, the tensions that you use and all that kind of stuff. I think it really opens up your brain. I've also had a lot of time to think about, okay, we have these paths that we typically go down when we write, right? Everyone has them, the chords that you lean towards, the themes that you lean towards. And if you challenge yourself to kind of go beyond that, then you start to form these new pathways that become more well-worn. And there was an exercise that I used to do that was told to me by the same professor, actually. And it was, try writing with your non-dominant hand. Because when you're writing lyrics, because it makes you write slower, and you'll see that your brain, in the time that it's taking you to write slower, by the time you finish that word that would have maybe taken you 2 seconds to write with your dominant hand, your brain has more time to think about the word that's going to come next than it would if you were just going through really quickly with your dominant hand. And you'll see like more options come up and more of these pathways emerge, and it works. It's really, really cool. It's frustrating because it takes so long and it looks so bad, but it's cool to see like the effect it has on your brain.
That's really interesting. That's particularly interesting to me because my home studio, I used to have I'm a piano player, right? So I work on, I songwrite on the piano, and I used to have my keyboard off to the side with its own little music stand and stuff like that, and my computer on this was an L-shaped thing or a long line kind of thing, right? So if I did a little draft of lyrics, say in Google Sheets or whatever, I would print it out, then take the printout with me to my piano, put it on the music stand, start playing the piano, trying to develop melodies, and at the same time scratching out lyrics with a pen and rewriting stuff and writing a new verse and with all with a pen. And now in my new home studio, my keyboard is literally underneath my desk, so I just slide it out and my computer's right in front of me. So now I type all my lyrics, and I go through revisions directly in Google Docs. I don't write lyrics with a pen anymore.
Honestly, I'm the same. I used to be like a black notebook and pen girl, and then as I got more into co-writing and stuff, I was like, it's just easier to do it all in Google Docs. And now, unless I like take the time, when I write on my own, I'll like sit down with a book and I'll properly write. But most of my sessions, I'm in Google Docs too, and it's fun. It's interesting to see how it changes the process, right?
Yeah, it totally does. But it's interesting too because I mean, just same as with pen and paper, you can see all the edits. You can go to your revisions and go, "Wow, this was like completely different 5 revisions
Yeah.
ago."
Be like,
Look at
God, did I
others.
really think this was good? Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
my.
Exactly. And speaking of speaking of collaborations, this is a co-write. You got 3 songwriters listed on this song. If you want to give a shout out to
Yes.
your co-writers.
So Via DeRoche is one of my favorite people in the world. She's based in Brooklyn, and we wrote almost the whole project together. And then Elias Abid is my producer, and he also co-wrote a couple of the songs with me and helped me like just develop this whole sonic world. I had a really specific vision going in, and we were able to make it come to life. So honestly, really, dream team.
Yeah. But so really, it was your vision, it was your idea from the start, and they were kind of, I won't say supporting role, but kind of a supporting.
Yeah. So I brought it. Via and I were writing for months for this project. Like there's 6 songs on it. I probably wrote 18 to 20 songs, and then you kind of cut from there. But this was I had another song in this slot originally in the track list, and I was like, this is not the song. And so I like Hail Married one more. I was on a Zoom session with Via, and I was like, listen, I have this thought, I have this idea, and we were like, let's do it, and we did. And yeah, she was instrumental. Both of them were instrumental in the process.
Amazing. And is sort of thing like, is it since you're doing like Zoom calls and things like that, is it bit by bit over Google Docs and things like that, or is it more like you're in the same room together and you just vibing and bounce around ideas and stuff?
You know what? I've done a lot of Zoom sessions, obviously with COVID and everything. When it's the right people and you have the right energy going on, it feels like you're in the same room. Like I'll be playing the piano and singing and like workshopping ideas, and I'll be like mumbling, and Via will like grab onto one of the words that I mumbled and be like that, and then we'll expand from there, and then nice. It's a really fun process. It's a very fluid process, and the Zoom sucks, but it does have its advantages because if not, then I wouldn't be able to write with her because she's all the way in New York.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the alternative is not doing it at all.
Exactly. If that's the alternative, then I will happily take Zoom.
Yeah. And Zoom has gotten better with their sound for musicians and stuff like that. You can actually play a little bit more live, and it's not obviously not the best, but hey, it works.
We do what we got to do, right?
Do what you got to do. Okay. So what about the other songs on this EP of yours? Are they sort of are they just sort of musically the same? Like what's the thing that ties them together aside from the narrative? What's the musical ideas that tie them together?
So they all are orchestral based. I was really lucky to have Ben Lee, who is a Toronto based like orchestrator and composer, do the orchestration for this project. But sonically what ties them together, the first half of the project is like straight up just orchestral. You will not find any synths. You won't really find any drums going on. You find a ton of vocal production. I love vocal production. The third song on the project, which is like kind of like this dream state flip song, is where you first start to hear sorry, this thing's giving a thumbs up. Is where you first start to hear a little bit of processed stuff. We had like a harp that we reversed and like did some crazy stuff with. And then it gets a little more modern with songs like Sunday Afternoon. We have a mellotron in it, and I Can See the End has like this guitar and like almost rocky kind of bridge to it. And then the final song, which is the title track, merges both of those sounds together. So it has a little bit of both, and it's like, this is what love is. This is what I thought it was, and this is the reconciling of the two.
Right. Okay. So you really carefully considered the big picture.
Oh,
yeah. Everything.
All of it.
Would you say that's really a Berklee influence? Like before you went to Berklee, would you have conceived of a project like this?
I was always a project girl. I was always like stories and like films, and like the big overarching themes is always what I've gravitated towards. I was never like classically trained though. So Berklee is what gave me like the tools to be able to execute it to the degree that I've always wanted it to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. Cause like I had like a little bit of piano, a little bit of voice, that kind of stuff, like when you're young and whatever. But writing was like my main thing, and songwriting and working with producers. And then going to Berklee gave me like the ear training. It gave me the like theoretical tools to know, okay, these are all the different modes. These are, different lyrical techniques. These, like, just music is like, here are the rules. Now you know what they are, and now you can break them, kind of thing. And learning those rules was really, really instrumental for me. And even just the confidence that I gained. Like, I felt like I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate with the people that I was working with in the way that I wanted it to. I always had very specific visions and sounds that I wanted in my productions and different riffs and motifs and things. And I didn't have the tools to communicate it properly. And Berklee gave me all of that confidence. Like, I'm a co-producer on this project, which I don't think would have happened without Berklee. I don't think I would have been able to get there.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah. Cause in my own songwriting journey, like I did do the the free course from Pat Pattison on Coursera.
Nice.
Like several years ago now, but it really flipped a switch in myself, and just what you're talking about in thinking about like the whole song, how does that, and that's what he talked about a lot in that course, about how like the prosody idea, right? How do your melodies, how do your rhymes, we didn't even talk about rhyming in this song.
We could get
how does all that stuff point to your central idea, your central theme, whatever kind of thing you're trying, what kind of emotion you're trying to convey with this piece, right?
Even syllables, like what syllables within one word are you emphasizing? How does that change the meaning, and how does that change how your listener is going to appreciate the song? What are you drawing attention to within one line of lyrics with where your melody is going, and what picture is that painting as well?
Yeah, and the difference for me was like all those little details, like you're talking about, how do they all unify together, as opposed to before I studied with him, it would have been like, I'm going to do that just cause, like there was no rhyme or reason, and there was no deliberate thing to it. It's just like, I think it sounds cool. But you know what? That's perfectly valid too.
It is. No, it is perfectly valid. There's something to be appreciated for both sides, for sure.
Yeah. And it does beg the question, especially with someone like you, that you seem to have studied a lot. Does it ever get in the way? Like for instance, like this idea of coloring coloring your chorus, for example. That's something, obviously you don't bring that into every song. And it's a tool that you use, but do you ever find that gets in the way of you feel like using it just because you know how to do it, even though the song may not warrant it? Does that ever happen?
I definitely have to remember that, like, just because you pick a tool up doesn't mean you can't put it back down. So that's something I have to remind myself. I'll be in sessions, even with other artists, like in my work, just writing, and I'm like, okay, this does not serve this song. This is not necessary here. Like, let's put this back in the toolbox. Let's see what else we have to work with, and kind of go from there. Because, and then again, these are like conversations I've had before where I'm like, oh, this kind of song seems less difficult to write than this kind of song because it's not as complex. It's like, no, do you have any idea how hard it is to write? like party rock, for example. This was like the specific example that I had used at the time. Like, not anybody could have written party rock, which it just seems like a fun party song, whatever. But how many writers do you know that would have had like the ability to put their ego aside or whatever it is and just straight up write party rock, like the party rock anthem? And it's a huge, anybody knows party rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're right. It is really hard to write super catchy, infectious pop songs. Like if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Exactly.
And clearly everyone is not. Yeah. That is a really interesting question about picking up a tool and then learning. And this whole idea about serving the song, like that's, to me, that's such a, like, I know what you mean, but to define that any further than serving the song, I don't know how to define that.
The way that I kind of look at it is like, I'm telling stories that maybe are mine, maybe are somebody else's, maybe it's a story I've made up. But at a certain point, you have to like make sure that the song and the story are not getting in the way of each other. Like they have to work together. They can't I can't let the story fight for dominance over, how many syllables can actually fit in this line. I do that all the time. I put way too many syllables in a line. I'm like, hey girl, they don't need correct grammar and and it doesn't need to be perfect English. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to have but is that in every single line. Yeah. So taking out things like that, even though it's like, oh, but the story isn't as detailed. It's like, no, but it's better for the song musically. It's better for the song melodically. And that's kind of it's kind of like this give and take between the different elements of the song. Even vocal production, like that's a layer to songwriting that it can enhance a song, or at a certain point, if you go too overboard or you're not putting the right lines in it, it can detract from the lyrics. It can detract from the chord progression, and it's all one giant balancing act.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then it's a lot of pieces to consider, a lot of parts.
You feel like a mad scientist at points.
Yeah.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. See what happens. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't explode.
Yeah, exactly. We all know how that feels when a song explodes on you.
Oh yeah. And then I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I tend to write a lot of, I call them prototype songs, where I'll have an idea for a song and I'll write it and I'll be like, it's okay, whatever. And then maybe 6 months later, however long it is, I'll write another song that's like 2.0 of the initial song that I wrote. And it's not the same lyrics. It's not the same chords. It's like, it's not like I rewrote that song, but the theme is the same, or the message of what I'm trying to get across is the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that wasn't the right time to write that song, or I needed to get this version out so that this really good song could exist.
Yeah.
I call those the prototype songs.
Yeah, for sure. I've done that a number of times. A few times where it's been very explicit that that's what happened. Sometimes it's a little bit softer, like it's not that much of a morph, but like I'm in a band and our lead singer had written this song. And he sent it to me and he asked me just to sort of work at improving the melody. And I started hacking away at it. And I'm like, no, I want to change this lyric so I can improve the melody. I want to change this lyric. Oh, the chorus could be stronger if I wrote it like this. And before I knew it, I'd completely rewritten the song. Had I ever would have wrote that song, had he not written that first song? No chance.
Exactly.
So it was a prototype. And then this was the version that we ended up using. So yeah, it does happen.
It's sometimes. Cool, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you look back through your catalog, or you look back through your notebook and you're like, oh my God, this was the seed of this song. It's really cool to see how the subconscious works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing stuff. Okie dokie. All right, I think I'm hearing the band in the background there, and I think that is all the time we have for the show tonight. This has been Song Talk Radio. A special thanks to Mimika, and where can we send our listeners to hear more of your music?
Oh my goodness. Anywhere on the internet that plays music. My name is Mimika. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, at Yo It's Mimika on Instagram and TikTok. I don't do Twitter because I don't understand it and I'm not funny enough to be on Twitter, but anywhere else you can find me.
Awesome. I don't think you need to be funny to be on Twitter. I don't get Twitter either, so I wouldn't worry. We want to hear from you, our listeners, so please send us your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on Song Talk Radio on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup, whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend. Bring a song and lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. If Phil were here, he would say you can follow him at philemery.ca. And Mimika, what's your favorite social media? Not Twitter or X.
Not Twitter. sorry, Twitter. Sorry, X. Instagram. That's where I am usually the most.
Right on. Cool. Very nice. Okay, and be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and keep on writing. that is a cut.
Yeah.
Normally we would hear the band music in the background, but because I can't play audio from my computer and talk at the same time.
Oh, gotcha.
Normally I was able to mix that in. I would have been able to mix it in if Zoom was cooperating with my computer audio. No, it's not. But yeah, okay, that was awesome. That was really good. A lot of good tips for songwriters.
Oh my gosh, I never get to be nerdy like this, so this was so fun.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's kind of what we strive for, because we do acknowledge that we have our podcast is kind of niche. Like, it's the stuff that songwriters want to hear about. We don't want to hear about your your drug addictions and your
No, you're right. You're so right. Have you ever listened? Yeah. Have you ever listened to And the Writer Is podcast?
No.
Oh my gosh, hosted by Ross Golan. He has every amazing songwriter and producer imaginable on the podcast. You have to listen to it. It's so cool. They talk all about like how the writers got into the industry, what their process is like for writing songs, some of like their bigger songs and stuff. It's really cool.
Nice.
There's definitely an audience for it. 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I've had my wife listen to this podcast when we first started it, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not your target demographic."
All the Berklee kids, that's the target demographic.
Yeah, she loves music, but it's like you guys talk about songs in a way that I've never even thought about, or not even like I don't go there.
No, but this is like, and most people when they listen to the songs, they don't think this intense about it. But the people who do, I'm like, so fun. Because you do all the like little nerdy stuff for yourself, and you're like, okay, whatever. If people get it, they get it, and if not, like I still appreciate it. But then like the people who you encounter who do appreciate it, you're like hats off to you. Nice little, know.
But they can pick out those details. But like we learned from Pat Pattison, you can put all those details. They all have emotional impact one way or the other.
Yeah, even the people who don't realize exactly what the like nerdy little detail is, they still feel the effect of it.
Yeah, they still
which is super cool. They might not know exactly what it is, but they're like, something about this song.
Yeah.
And that's so fun to see too.
Yeah. Which is what I tell people about music theory. Like, whether you know it's there or not, it's there. Whether you're using it or not, it's there.
It's there. You could not know a thing about it, and you're still a victim of it. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. Like the Beatles didn't know music theory. No, but they were using it. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Insane. Were they ever? Okay, well, great to have you on the show, Mimika. So nice to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to see you too.
Enjoy the rest of your tour.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. I'll send you a note when the podcast drops, and you can share it with all your peeps on Instagram.
Yes, please.
Or X.
Yeah, if I ever get there. Oh my God.
X. Okay, great. Okay, well, have a great day. Thanks for getting up early to do this with us.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.